Picture a plant far away from its natural habitat. You nurture it, you water it, and you watch it grow despite its unfamiliar environment. That's what moving to Paris has been like for me. A journey of growth, learning, and adaptation 10,000 kilometers away from where I was raised. Today I'm going to share with you what I've learned after working for 5 years in the city of lights. Pre-planning is non-negotiable. I mean, internships over here are signed months before they begin. Important work meetings are also set up weeks before they're supposed to take place after having specified who will be there and what we're going to talk about. Even paperwork over here, especially for foreigners, are extremely time sensitive. That means that people rely heavily on the calendar app of their phone. I was not much of a calendar email kind of guy before, but after moving over here, that has happened to me too. I use my calendar a lot. Stuff like setting up a recurring reminder for your tax declaration in your calendar itself is really super smart. And I don't use Facebook for birthdays anymore. I put it in my contact and it shows up on my calendar. So I don't really miss these important things because it's on my calendar. Man, it's hot in here. Merging your work and personal calendars is a great idea to stay organized. They are color coded so I can spot a commitment from a distance. I even block out workout sessions to make sure that they get done. Otherwise, life gets in the way and you don't do what you want to do. I was not as organized before, but then it turned out to be a very organized calendar, email dependent guy. Nelson Mandela was super right. Speaking the local language can give you a huge leg up, especially when you move to a country like France where people don't speak a bunch of languages. They perceive you as intelligent for learning the language, while you and I both know, if you've been watching this channel for a bit, that it doesn't take intellect, it takes persistence to learn the language. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is you connect more emotionally with people when you use the same nostalgic phrases that they've been listening and hearing for all of these years. If you get these references and idioms right, there's a special kind of connection that you would not do if you spoke with them in English, a language that they also understand. Just like Mandela said, when you speak to someone in a language that they understand, it goes to their head. But if you speak to them in their language, it goes to their heart. If you're here just for the course of a couple of years for school or just for a job for a few years, then I get it. You don't want to put in all of this investment into learning a new language. But if you want to stay here in the medium to long term, then one of the best investments you can make is learning the French language. Avoiding learning the French language is like putting off the purchase of flight ticket until the very last day, while you were sure months before that you're going to take this flight and travel anyway. The price goes up for no reason and you're living all of these days in stress. Don't be that guy. On a side note, a close friend of mine wanted to pick up some French and he asked me to help him out with it. I challenged him to go work on a farm, just like I did back in the day. And that's the best way to pick it up, in my opinion. And I did not think that he would implement, and he did. He just packed his bags and he left. But you gotta do what you gotta do to pick up the language, you know. And this is an advantage, an unfair advantage that you wouldn't have if you're working in USA or if you're working in UK, where everybody speaks English. But because you moved over here, and if you spend that time to learn it really well by doing what you do, by doing creative stuff to learn the language, then you're seen as somebody who's a little different than everybody else, someone who is capable of getting things done. And it can be one of those entry to your doorways kind of thing in the interview where they say, well, I learned my French to fluency by myself. So if I do your job for 8 hours a day, I'm definitely going to pick it up. You know, something that you can check immediately. Observing how he's picking up his French and how a couple of my friends who love language learning are picking up their French, I worked on this handbook to help Indians pick up their French. Si tu veux améliorer ton niveau de français, je prépare un guide pour justement t'aider à améliorer ton niveau de français, spécifiquement pour les expatriés indiens en France. Je partage les méthodes qui ont le mieux marché pour moi et aussi j'interviewe quelques amis à moi, les polyglottes qui ont appris plusieurs langues, pour que tu perds pas de temps à essayer tout avant que tu trouves un truc qui te convient. Click the first link in the description to be the first to know when that handbook is out. Now, the French are reputed to be lazy, and so I fit right in. No, I'm just kidding. While that's the reputation that French people have, I can't help but notice how fit people in France are. I've done a couple of 10-kilometer runs and I've been going for a few weeks at this run club at work. And I still am the last person. You know, people who are so much older than I, 20, 25 years older than I, they are so fit, they can just keep going on and on. Tell me that's lazy. An hour and change, people just push themselves really hard. The culture permits me to shut my computer and go out and live my life. You know, and I notice this not just in my company, and I can be confident about this, that it's not just my company, because when I look at hairdressers, they're not open in the evening. And there's so many other businesses, apart from foreigners who've just moved here and they want to make money, those people work later in the evening. But a French hairdresser would not be open. At 6:30, 7:30, he would close and he would go home because he wants to be home, cook food for his family and spend some time with his family, have his downtime, you know. And now that I come to think of it, it's like, yeah, of course, that's what you want. I want to do that too. I want to be home and be doing my thing, not here working at 7:30 p.m., you know. The environment forces you to stop, to disconnect, and to do some other things that are valuable in life, like cooking healthy food, like doing fitness. And some Sundays over here, I'm just the most unproductive person ever. Productive rest kind of thing, I'm just doing nothing. I'm not doing 5 things from a list. I'm watching a movie and enjoying it in the moment. But as much as I can remember, that's not the person that I was before I moved over here. I would not sit down and enjoy as much. My mind would be racing and I would be doing stuff, not sitting down. And now I'm sitting down. I mean, I'm literally sitting. Network is super important. Now, I can't put my finger on it because the French are super bureaucratic, and while being so bureaucratic and paying attention to which school you came out from, was it a good school and stuff, that meritocracy stuff, while that is true, there's also this other thing where knowing the right people can open the right doors for you. And I can't put my finger on where, you can't generalize the whole country. Both of these things for me have been true in Paris. Airplane mode, this thing, dude. Now that sounds completely unfair, to not count on meritocracy and counting on knowing the right people. It sounds extremely unfair, but the culture is like that. Knowing the right people can help you out a lot. But even in a non-selfish way, when you appreciate someone for the work that they have done, one of my first managers from my internships back in the day, for example, we still stay in touch. He reaches out now and then. We go out to have a lunch or a dinner, or I reach out to him and I want to catch up after work one of these days just to see what he's up to. He reaches out to me when he needs help for someone that he knows. But even for me, when someone asks me, or when I consider myself starting something of my own, what does it take to start something and to scale it up as an entrepreneur, I notice that he's doing it well. So I would catch up with him and ask him, how's it going? Just from professional curiosity, perhaps. It's not just I want a job in your company. It's not just that. I'm sure this is true everywhere else as well. But since knowing the right people gives you a head up, people are staying in touch with everybody. So that's what you do over here. You stay in touch with people, even if you've not worked with them for the last 6 years. Your network in France is super important, and my business school told me about it a couple of times, but I did not know really how to act upon it, to improve it, to go for networking events, to attend stuff online on LinkedIn. I do not know how to do it, but a good network takes time for you to build. But yeah, notice what do you admire in people around you. And once you notice that, vocalizing that in privacy with them is a great idea, and attaching yourself to what they do when you admire how they do it. I mean, it sounds really convoluted, but when you find someone that you like the way that they do what they do, and you enjoy the energy around how they do it, if you like to be in a positive workspace, for example, that's what I like, then it's good to point out that, yeah, I like this, and tell them that and stay in touch. Quite the spiel. So one way to get into this network would be to get into a good business school that gives you access to this network, and companies will hire you just because you went to that school and you have these grades. That is also unfair in my opinion. But France really is very specific about the prestige of the school where they hire people from. That's one way to get into, or also by knowing people. How you get to know people is up to you. If you're a great icebreaker, your life will be awesome. But yeah, reaching out to people, finding out how you can drive value to them, and building a network that way is a great move. Your network really helps. That feels like less of a cliffhanger. Now, I love Indian food, but there is this thing called the French paradox, where people in France eat food that is very rich in saturated fats, but the frequency of coronary heart disease in France is really low. When you have this kind of rich food, normally people have a lot of coronary heart disease, right? Well, my theory is, what I've noticed is that people start off with their entree and they eat forever. They spend a good 15-20 minutes just with a couple of salad leaves, and they eat that for a hot second. By the time their main dish comes and it's time for dessert, by the time they eat that, it's already been 40-45 minutes that they've been sitting down at this point. When it's important company, sitting down for 2 hours over lunch and talking with people is not super shocking. Like Christmas meals in the farm where I worked was forever. I think that's what really explains the French paradox, because in 20 minutes your brain is already signaling that I've had enough, I don't want much. So the amount of cheese that you eat, although it's really rich in these fats, is not the biggest quantity. And I think back in my Indian way of eating, I would have a huge quantity of rice. You should see the amount of rice they serve you. It's like this small mint chutney katori. That's the amount of rice you get over here. So proposing lunch is seen as this invitation to connect, and if it's accepted, you're getting off on the right foot with someone who's a little more senior to you at work, or someone whose work you admire from just knowing what they've delivered in the past. And the fact that you sit down for a good fat 2 hours and talk with them, this is a part of the culture that you need to just know. People do that. So it's nice to do that yourself so that you get to connect with people. In my experience, it's probably just this company. I don't have enough data with other companies to confirm this. In my experience, when you reach out to people this way and you sit down and share with them what ideas you have, you pitch a new piece of innovation, something that you would like to build, I think people are a little more constructive, critical, not using the right words to help you out, as opposed to trying the same thing in a formal meeting where they would probably use a lot of positive words to encourage you and not maybe be honest or sponsor you and coach you on that. When you have it in a lunch kind of setup, I feel that it's a little more, it feels like you're on the same team. When you sit down and you share something and then they're like, yeah, this part I really don't like, I think you could change it and do it this way. Would you be interested if that kind of conversation, it really goes, it's very intimate to sit down and have lunch with somebody. It's not shocking. People sit down and talk about work during lunch, and that's what makes them a little more efficient. In the data world of where I work, knowing a handful of people and lunching with them now and then has really helped me to propel my career. I enjoy what I do. You fit in somewhere in the cogwheel and one can count on you. Finally, peace of mind. There are so many financial benefits to moving to France, and these financial benefits result in peace of mind. I've done so much research around this after speaking to scores of seniors about how to better handle my personal finances here in France. And there's a lot to unravel over here. So I made a whole video about it, which will definitely be helpful for you. If there's something that you'd like to hear about for next week, leave that in the comment section below and I'll consider making a video on that. If this video was any valuable, please give it a thumbs up. It certainly helps my channel. I'll see you guys next week. Take care of yourselves and keep learning.